The Andromeda Deep Space Station hung like a jewel against the velvet backdrop of space, its crystalline spires catching starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Captain Rowan Hayes stood at the observation deck, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched approaching vessels dock with practiced precision. After 15 years in the Terran Space Force, he thought he'd seen everything the universe had to offer. He was wrong. The alert came without warning. Proximity alarms screamed through the station's corridors as unknown ships materialized from quantum space, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Rowan's training kicked in before his conscious mind could process the situation. "This is Captain Hayes to all personnel. Battle stations. This is not a drill." The first blast hit before he finished speaking. The station shuddered, artificial gravity fluctuating as emergency systems engage. Through the chaos, Rowan caught a glimpse of something extraordinary, a small vessel breaking away from the attacking fleet, pursued by the mysterious ships. Its design was unlike anything he'd ever seen, organic curves flowing like liquid metal. The vessel was clearly damaged, trailing plasma as it desperately maneuvered toward the station. Rowan's comm crackled with the transmission, the universal translator struggling to process the alien language. But beneath the mechanical interpretation, he caught something that made his blood run cold: fear. "This is Princess Nellyra, Tuveri of the Lysarian Collective. Requesting immediate asylum. They're trying to." The transmission cut off as another blast rocked the station. Rowan didn't hesitate. "Control, open emergency bay 3. Security team to my location." He sprinted through the corridors, the station's warning lights casting crimson shadows across his path. By the time he reached the emergency bay, the alien vessel had managed to dock, though smoke poured from its hull. The airlock cycled, and Rowan raised his pulse rifle, unsure what to expect. The door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Through the smoke stepped a figure that would forever change his life. She stood nearly as tall as him, her skin a deep indigo that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Bioluminescent markings traced elegant patterns across her face, pulsing with what he would later learn were her emotions. But it was her eyes that caught him. Solid silver, like liquid mercury, yet filled with an intelligence that was undeniably sentient. "Captain Hayes," she said, the translator catching up with her words. "My people are in danger. The Nexus Collective has." An explosion rocked the bay. Debris rained down as the attacking ship scored another hit. Nellyra stumbled, and Rowan moved without thinking, catching her before she fell. The moment their skin touched, an electric current seemed to pass between them. Her markings flared brilliant blue, and Rowan felt a sudden rush of foreign emotions. Fear, determination, and something else, something he couldn't quite name. "You're psychically sensitive," she gasped, silver eyes widening. "How is that possible? Humans aren't supposed to." Another blast cut her off. The station's AI announced in its calm voice that structural integrity was failing in multiple sections. They were out of time. Questions later, Rowan said, helping her steady herself. "Right now, we need to move. Those ships aren't going to stop until they've taken you or destroyed the station. I'm not letting either happen." Nellyra studied him for a moment, her markings shifting to a deeper purple. "Why would you help me? You know nothing about me or my people." Rowan checked his weapon's charge as emergency klaxons wailed around them. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because I've seen enough war to know when someone's running from genuine danger." He managed a slight smile. "Besides, it's not every day an alien princess lands in my arms." Her markings flickered with what might have been amusement. "Very well, Captain Hayes. Lead the way. But know this, by helping me, you've just involved yourself in a conflict that spans galaxies." "Wouldn't be the first time," he replied, gesturing toward the emergency corridor. "After you, Your Highness." As they ran through the chaos of the dying station, neither of them could know that this moment would spark a chain of events that would reshape the very fabric of human-alien relations, or that the connection they'd felt, that simple touch, would prove to be more significant than either of them could imagine. The real question was, would they live long enough to find out? The escape pod streaked through the atmosphere like a meteor, its hull glowing red-hot as friction tried to tear it apart. Inside, Rowan gripped the manual controls, his knuckles white as he fought to keep them from burning up on entry. Beside him, Nylira's bioluminescent markings pulsed with rapid patterns he couldn't decipher, but her voice remained steady as she called out readings from the damaged navigation system. Altitude dropping. 3,000 meters. Hull integrity at 40%. The planet's surface rushed up to meet them, a vast expanse of purple-tinted forest broken by crystalline formations that jutted from the ground like massive shards of glass. Rowan had managed to plot a course to this uninhabited world before the Andromeda Station's final collapse, but now he was starting to question that decision. 2,000 meters. Rowan, the port stabilizer is failing. He allowed himself a grim smile at her use of his first name. Amazing how quickly formality disappeared when you were plummeting to possible death together. Hold on, princess. This is going to get rough. The pod shuddered violently as the stabilizer gave out. Rowan compensated, but their trajectory shifted dangerously. They were coming in too fast, too steep. The treetops rushed up to meet them, their crystalline branches glinting in the alien sunlight. Impact. The world became a chaos of noise and motion. The pod carved a path through the forest, each hit threatening to tear the hull apart. When they finally stopped, silence fell like a physical weight. Rowan blinked, tasting blood from where he bit his cheek. Beside him, Nylira stirred with a soft groan. Still alive, Your Highness. Her markings flickered weakly. Surprisingly. Your landing skills need work, Captain. Next time I'll try for something more elegant. He checked the pod's systems, or what remained of them. Environmental readings show breathable atmosphere, but we should still run a proper scan before. A sound cut through the air, a high-pitched whine that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Nylira went rigid, her markings flashing to a deep red he hadn't seen before. Harvester drones, she whispered. They followed us. Rowan was already moving, grabbing the emergency pack and his weapon. What exactly are we dealing with? Autonomous hunters. The Nexus Collective uses them to track targets across any terrain. She accepted his help in standing, her silver eyes scanning the twisted wreckage of their pod. They won't stop until they find us. Then we better not be here when they do. He shouldered the pack and offered her his arm for support. Can you walk? Instead of answering, she pressed her hand against his forearm. That same electric sensation from their first touch surged between them, but this time it felt different. Purposeful. Strength flowed into his muscles, his fatigue vanishing like morning dew. What did you just? A temporary enhancement, she explained, her markings swirling with exhaustion. My people can share energy, though it's usually reserved for family members, or... She trailed off, looking almost embarrassed. Or... Another whine split the air, closer this time. Nylira gripped his arm tighter. We need to move, head for the crystal formations. They'll help mask our energy signatures. They moved through the alien forest as quickly as they dared. The vegetation was unlike anything Rowan had seen. Plants that seemed to be part crystal, part organic matter. Their footsteps crunched on what looked like grass made of fine purple filaments. The Nexus Collective, Rowan said as they walked, keeping his voice low. Want to tell me why they're so determined to capture you? Nylira was quiet for a long moment. Her markings shifted through subtle patterns before settling on a deep blue. They believe my people possess something they want. A genetic trait that allows us to manipulate energy at its fundamental level. Like what you did back there. The energy sharing. That's just a fraction of what we can do. She paused, looking at him intently. What I don't understand is how you could receive it. Humans shouldn't be compatible with our abilities. Yet somehow you are. Before Rowan could respond, movement caught his eye. A drone emerged from the crystal forest, its sleek form hovering silently. Its scanner beam swept the area, getting dangerously close to their position. Without hesitation, Rowan pulled Nilira behind a large crystal formation. They pressed together in the narrow space, barely breathing. Her markings dimmed to near darkness, but he could feel her heart racing where their bodies touched. The drone moved closer. 10 meters. 5. 3. Rowan raised his weapon, knowing a single shot would give away their position, but ready to take that risk if necessary. He felt Nilira's hand close around his wrist, that same energy flowing between them, but different now, focused, precise. The drone's scanner beam passed directly over their hiding spot, and through them, as if they weren't there at all. After what felt like an eternity, the drone moved on, continuing its search pattern deeper into the forest. Rowan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Did you just make us invisible?" Nilira's markings flickered with what he was learning to recognize as amusement. "Not exactly. I bent the energy around us, like a river flowing around a stone. But I couldn't have done it without your help. Your energy. It amplifies mine in ways I've never experienced." Their eyes met in the crystal-filtered light. Questions hung in the air between them, but before either could speak, a new sound echoed through the forest, the distinct whump of ships entering atmosphere. "More company?" Rowan asked, already knowing the answer. Nilira's markings pulsed with determination. "The Nexus Collective never sends drones without follow-up forces. They're coming for us. Then we better make sure they don't find us." He checked his weapon charge and adjusted the pack. "Ready for another adventure, Princess." Her silver eyes seemed to glow in the strange light. "With you, Captain. Always." Together, they moved deeper into the crystal forest, while above them, dark ships descended through the alien sky. The hunt was on, but this time they had something their pursuers didn't expect: each other. Would that be enough to survive what was coming? Only time would tell. The crystal cavern sparkled with bioluminescent fungi, casting an ethereal glow across Rowan and Nilira's makeshift camp. 3 days had passed since their crash landing, and the Nexus Collective's forces had only grown stronger. The cavern's unique mineral composition helped mask their presence, but they both knew it was only a matter of time before they were found. Nilira sat cross-legged, her indigo skin seeming to pulse with the cave's natural light as she focused. Between her outstretched hands, pure energy danced like liquid starlight. "Try again," she instructed. "Feel the energy flow. Don't force it." Rowan exhaled slowly, extending his hands toward hers. The connection between them had grown stronger with each passing day, but controlling it was another matter entirely. He felt the familiar electric sensation as their energies met, watched as the light between them intensified. "Good," she murmured, her markings shifting to a pleased golden hue. "Now, shape it. Remember, energy responds to intent more than." The light flared suddenly, bright enough to leave spots in their vision. Rowan cursed as the energy dissipated. "Sorry, still can't quite get the hang of it." "You're learning faster than anyone could expect," Nilira assured him, her silver eyes soft with something that might have been affection. "No human has ever shown the ability to manipulate energy like this. You're quite remarkable, Captain Hayes." Before he could respond, their proximity sensors chimed a warning. Someone, or something, was approaching the cavern entrance. They moved in perfect sync, Rowan drawing his weapon while Nilira's hands filled with crackling energy. The footsteps grew closer. Then a voice called out, one that made Nilira's markings flash with shock. "Sister, are you there?" A figure emerged from the shadows. He was clearly of Nilira's species, though his skin was a deeper shade of indigo and his markings pulsed with urgent patterns. Nilira stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. "Talon, how did you find us?" "Through the old ways," he replied, touching his temple. "The family bond. Though I must say, your energy signature has become interesting." His mercury eyes shifted to Rowan, widening slightly. A human. This explains much. He saved my life, Nylyra said firmly. And he's helping me stop the Nexus Collective. Talon's markings rippled with concern. Then you haven't heard. The Collective has launched their final offensive. They're attacking our homeworld, sister. They believe if they can't have our power, no one should. The news hit like a physical blow. Nylyra's markings went almost black with horror. No, they wouldn't dare. The planetary shields have been compromised, Talon finished grimly. We have less than 2 planetary cycles before they break through. The Council is evacuating civilians, but our military forces are scattered. We need you, sister. Your power, combined with your position, might be our only hope. Rowan watched the siblings, seeing the weight of an entire civilization settling onto Nylyra's shoulders. He made his decision without hesitation. How many ships do they have? Both aliens turned to him. Talon's markings showed surprise. You would help us? Why? Because it's the right thing to do, Rowan replied, then smiled slightly. And because I've gotten rather attached to your sister. Nylyra's markings flushed with a color he'd never seen before, something between joy and embarrassment. Talon looked between them, understanding dawning in his silver eyes. The energy bond, he said softly. It's not just compatibility, is it? You've formed a true connection. Which is why we might have a chance, Nylyra said, stepping closer to Rowan. My power amplifies his natural abilities, and his presence strengthens mine. Together, we might be able to do what neither of us could alone. Talon's markings shifted through complex patterns before settling on a determined blue. Then we must hurry. I have a stealth ship hidden nearby. If we leave now, we can reach the homeworld before the shields fall. As they gathered their supplies, Rowan felt Nylyra's hand slip into his. That familiar energy flowed between them, but now it felt different. Deeper, more permanent. You don't have to do this, she said softly. This isn't your fight. Rowan squeezed her hand, watching as their combined energy created subtle patterns in the air around them. Maybe not originally, but I'm making it mine. Besides, he grinned, I've always wanted to help save a civilization. Her markings pulsed with warmth. And after? If we survive. After, he said, touching her cheek gently, we figure out exactly what this connection between us means. Together. Above them, through the crystal ceiling, they could see the stars. The same stars that would soon become a battlefield. But as they followed Talon toward his hidden ship, Rowan felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The Nexus Collective wanted to steal the power of Nylyra's people. Instead, they had inadvertently created something new. A bridge between species, a power born of unity rather than conquest. And perhaps, just perhaps, that would be enough to change everything. The Lysarian homeworld hung in space like a jewel, its crystalline cities glinting beneath the planetary shields that rippled with failing energy. From the bridge of Talon's stealth ship, Rowan watched as the Nexus Collective's armada hammered against those shields. Hundreds of ships, their dark hulls absorbing light like cosmic predators. The shields won't hold much longer, Talon reported, his markings pulsing with urgent patterns as he studied the tactical display. Maybe an hour at most. Beside him, Nylyra's hands were pressed against a crystal interface, her silver eyes closed in concentration. Through their strengthening bond, Rowan could feel her connecting with the planetary defense network, her consciousness spreading across vast distances. They've corrupted the main shield generators, she said, her voice distant. But there's something else. The Collective isn't just trying to destroy our world. They're attempting to harvest our planet's core crystal. If they succeed, they'll have access to the source of your people's power, Rowan finished. He'd learned more about Lysarian culture in the past few days than most humans had in decades of diplomatic relations. The core crystal was everything, the heart of their civilization, the source of their energy manipulation abilities. We can't let that happen, Talon said firmly. But our remaining forces are scattered. Even if we could coordinate a counterattack, then we don't fight conventionally. Rowan interrupted, an idea forming. Nilira, you said our connection amplifies both our abilities. What if we could do that on a larger scale? Her markings flickered with interest. What are you suggesting? Your people's power comes from the core crystal, right? And you can channel that energy. He stepped closer to her, watching as their proximity caused subtle patterns of light to dance between them. What if we could use our connection to create a feedback loop? Channel the crystal's power through both of us, multiply it, and send it back out as a weapon. She finished, her eyes widening. It's never been done before. The amount of energy would be devastating, Talon warned, and dangerous. A connection that deep could kill you both. Rowan looked at Nilira, seeing his own determination reflected in her silver eyes. Better us than your entire civilization. The ship shuddered as a stray blast from the battle above clipped their shields. Time was running out. We'll need to get to the core chamber, Nilira said. Talon, can you clear us a path? Her brother's markings pulsed with fierce pride. Consider it done. What followed was a blur of motion and energy. Talon's ship dove through the chaos of battle, weaving between massive capital ships and streams of weapons fire. They landed in a secret entrance to the crystal cities, fighting their way through Nexus collective forces that had already breached the outer defenses. The core chamber was a vast cathedral of crystal, centered around a pillar of pure energy that stretched from floor to ceiling. The heart of Lysarian civilization. As they entered, Rowan felt its power like a physical presence, calling to something deep within him. Quickly, Nilira urged, leading him to a circular platform before the core. The shields are about to fail. Above them, through the crystalline ceiling, they could see the final assault beginning. The collected ships positioned themselves for the killing blow. Nilira took Rowan's hands, their fingers intertwining. The moment they touched, energy surged between them stronger than ever before. Her markings blazed with light, and he felt his own skin begin to glow with a matching radiance. Are you ready? She whispered. Instead of answering, he pulled her closer and kissed her. The energy between them exploded, their consciousness merging, expanding, becoming something greater than either of them alone. Through their connection, he felt her surprise, her joy, her love, emotions beyond words, beyond species. Then they reached for the core crystal's power together. The universe seemed to hold its breath. Energy poured into them, through them, around them. Rowan felt like he was being unmade and remade with every heartbeat. Through their shared vision, he saw the collective ships above, saw their dark hulls that absorbed light and energy. Perfect. Together, they released the power they'd gathered. But instead of attacking, they gave. They poured energy into those light-absorbing hulls, more and more, faster than the ships could process. The darkness that made them so formidable became their undoing. Ships began to rupture, their hulls overloading with power they couldn't contain. The chain reaction spread through the fleet like a cascade of light, beautiful and terrible. When it was over, when the last echoes of power faded, Rowan found himself on his knees, still holding Nilira's hands. They were both alive, exhausted, drained, but alive. Around them, the core chamber hummed with renewed strength. Above, through the crystal ceiling, they could see the stars again. The collective's fleet was gone. Well, he managed, his voice rough. That was something. Nilira's markings rippled with joy and amusement. Indeed. Though I believe you started it with that kiss. Seemed like the right moment. It was. She touched his cheek gently. Where their skin met, tiny sparks of energy still danced. What happens now? Rowan smiled, pulling her closer. Now we have peace. Two species connected in a way no one could have predicted. A bridge between worlds. He glanced at the core crystal, still pulsing with power. And maybe, if you're willing, we figure out what else this connection of ours can do. Her markings shifted to that special color he now recognized as love. Together. Together. As they sealed that promise with another kiss, energy swirling around them like starlight, Rowan reflected that sometimes the greatest adventures weren't about saving worlds or defeating enemies. Sometimes they were about finding something you never knew you were looking for, across the vast distances of space, in the most unexpected places. Sometimes they were about love that could bridge the gap between stars.